and Didi for uh, just wanted to make sure if everybody is comfortable with the session being recorded. If you are not comfortable, please feel free to flag that and we'll take note of it. Just please feel free to just type that on chat in case you're not comfortable. I'm assuming that people are comfortable for now. Having said that, I will go on. Hi, everybody. I am Mitali from Jhatkaa.org, and I am a campaigner with Jhatkaa, and I take care of the air pollution, climate, and mobility vertical. And as my beautiful colleagues Chiku and Didi mentioned, we're all doing the Future City Festival together, and we will be having a conversation with you about it. Before I move forward, I would just request all of you to keep yourselves on mute while somebody else is talking, just as general house rules, uh, to be respectful of people and their identities and their pronouns. And at the same time, please feel free to engage and interact because we do want to turn this into a conversation and we hope that all of you have inputs and suggestions for us. Um, so before I move on to tell you about what Future City Festival is, there are a lot of important questions that we asked ourselves that led us to a place where we conceptualized Future City Festival. I think when all of us look at our cities, and when I look at my city, there are questions I ask myself. When I'm in a city, or does the city I am in make me feel loved? The city I'm in, does that city make me feel cared for? The city that I am in, do I feel safe in those cities? Do I feel that I can feel a sense of belonging and a sense of community when I exist in a city? And I want to open the floor for all of you, and I really encourage all of you to participate. When you think of your cities, do you feel loved? Do you feel cared for? And what makes you feel that way in a city? And are there places in your city that you enjoy going to that make you feel a larger sense of belonging to that city?
Hi, can I go ahead?
Hi, Nandini, I hear you. And yes, please.
Yeah, so I'm from Bangalore and I just shifted last year actually. So I think everyone here is sort of aware of the political climate present here. And I think, in a way, if something were to make me feel like I belong here, I would say it's in the early mornings and late nights, especially in I'd say Kaban Park, or else around Ashok Nagar and Malleshwaram are these are like the three spots where I feel very comfortable, not because of safety or anything. I think it's just the fact that it's very peaceful in general. So it's kind of nice to be away from all that noise.
I hear you, and like Kabin is honestly one of my favorite places in Bangalore too. And it is indeed peaceful, and especially I believe like the times you mentioned to be at all of these spaces. I know there has been generally like a lot of conversation on like people who come from gender minorities. There are times that they particularly like feel safe where they can exist without the anxieties of everyday life not breathing down their back. So I completely hear you on that front, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. Is there anybody else who wants to share like what city they're from, what are places they enjoy in their city, if they feel like larger sense of like love and belonging and safety and care in their cities and community and how they experience it?
I can say something, Mitali.
Yeah, of course, Ahal. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. I am also from Bangalore. Actually, Bangalore for me is possibly the third city that I've spent a lot of time in. I was born in Hyderabad, then was in Bombay for a year before I came to Bangalore. And when we moved to Bangalore, Bangalore pretty much really felt like home because of the cosmopolitan society. People, I mean, the plays and the reading culture and everything really just seemed like very accepting. And I think finally that is what defines a city is the people. And I've always seen that Bangaloreans are very willing to help, willing to accept. Whether it was like recently, I've been at the planetarium at 4:30 in the morning, and you meet random people and you're able to have a conversation. And there's also the charm of old Bangalore when you go to like the place like Opus used to be, or you have like Bob's Bar and other places that you have people that normally frequent, and you'll end up bumping into a whole lot of people that are common, and it's like always good to see those people and enjoy the retro music that Bangalore is known for, right? I mean, where else would you have 80s and 90s rock still being something that we all go back to? So again, that's something that the Bangalore people have just held on to and feel that makes us feel at home. So yeah, that's part of it. Apart from the great food that we all, I guess, love Bangaloreans love. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Rahul. And you mentioned the people, and very interestingly, yesterday this was a conversation Chiku and I were having because we were working together, and we were talking about how people so richly add to the experience of Bangalore and the sense of connection you feel to the people here. And of course, you're absolutely right about places like Commons and Bob's Bar. I feel that even if you don't have a table at Bob's Bar, if you start speaking to someone at Bob's, you'll end up sitting somewhere. Um, and yes, I think it is ultimately the people who make the place really, really beautiful. Is there anybody else who wants to share with us um, what they feel about their cities? What are places they like, or for that matter, where do they feel a sense of love and belonging, community, and care?
Hey,
Yeah.
everyone. I am Drishtadyumna, and I've only been to Bangalore once, but I really love Cubbon Park, and we've done a few cleanups there. Chico's shown me all around Bangalore, and from whether it's the traffic problem or whether it's the black smoke being emitted by the buses, uh, a sense of a sense of belonging, a general sense of belongings there in Bangalore. And I think if we could all come together to envision what we want the future of Bangalore to be, like the people of Delhi came together in December last year, I think that could really help us pave the path and walk on it, because we'll be able to better envision the future. Thank you. That's my time. If you're comfortable, please turn on your cameras, because if we can see each other, it makes for better conversation.
Yeah. Again, like, thank you so much for bringing that up, Didi. And honestly, Chiku, for a lot of us, has been the person who's introduced us to Bangalore and various aspects of Bangalore. But it's right, like, while we are having conversations about where we feel loved and where we feel a sense of belonging and what we like about our cities, there's enough currently in our cities that's not working. Um, and cities are not safe or hospitable for a lot of people, and you can see it in everyday examples, right? Like, for me, it was when I was going through my period of like learning and unlearning, it felt like such a cultural shock to learn about hostile architecture, for example, where I realized that, say, the benches we see in front of McDonald's that otherwise have Ronald McDonald on it and seem very fun are actually anti homeless architecture, they are created in a way so that like people can't sleep in that area, because Ronald McDonald would always say be in the center of the benches, which would not leave space for people to lie down on those benches and for people who are otherwise unhoused for them to occupy those spaces. There are documentaries that have been created on where people sleep and how they sleep in a city. And if you were to like walk around in a city, and if you go around in a city, you will realize that so many spaces are not friendly for people who walk. And of course, more so not friendly for people who are disabled. And then there are spaces that you would see people who come from gendered minorities or vulnerable populations can't be in because of safety issues. So, and then of course, there's the entire conversation about pollution in a city. I know a lot of the people here are from Bangalore, and Bangalore is currently like the third most polluted city in India. Um, so there are a lot of things that make a city inhospitable, and y'all can like use the chat box to also share what makes the city for you inhospitable. So when we as citizens of our city were thinking about why we feel a sense of discomfort in our cities or what could be better about our cities, we started thinking about what does a future city look like, and what does a utopian idea of the city look like. Because I find it so fascinating that whenever you see these sci-fi films talk about the utopian city or the city of the future, you will see like these flying cars, and you will see these big buildings, and you would see these just enormous gigantic towers around you, but you won't see trees. And just for me, like something that simple missing in our idea of our future cities, even like in sci-fi films, um, just says so much about how jaded we are about our idea of our future, and how, of course, like the current political climate affects everything that's going on, from like our policies to way like cities are envisioned, why they feel unsafe, who makes us feel unsafe, and how can we solve for it, right? So moving further, this is how the idea of future cities came into play. So now to introduce all of you to the idea of future city, for us, future city wanted to answer a lot of these questions. And future city for us had to be a solution that brought people together, just like we are together today, to think and talk about how can we create a city we can fall in love with, a city that feels safe to us, that feels safe to our peers, that is clean, that is a space all of us enjoy to be in, a space that fosters an idea of community, a space that makes you want to be in it, a space that is not polluted. So moving to future cities is something that we did in Delhi, and Didi and Chiku were very closely involved with it, which happened in December in Delhi, and it came in the form of an AR installation that we have created. You could interact with that augmented reality installation, and you could envision and imagine and see yourself in various parts of Delhi. If Delhi looked like the future city it should have been in the first place, which meant that it had EV infrastructure, it had good pavements, it had places you could walk in, it had cycles on the road, it had good lighting. And we thought that this idea needs to travel for a conversation to continue through various parts of this country. And that's when we decided to also bring this same installation, but with Bangalore in mind, to Bangalore. And we began with the idea of the installation and started to envision it as a full-fledged conversation in the form of a festival. So I introduced to you the Future City Festival. And the Future City Festival is essentially a place all of us congregate at, The Future City Festival is happening on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th June at Bangalore Creative Circus. And Bangalore Creative Circus is a beautiful, beautiful space. This is what Bangalore Creative Circus looks like. It's in Yashwantpur. And it's a hub for all things sustainable and regenerative, climate and clean energy and solar. And as a part of this festival, we want to continue the ongoing conversation that exists at multiple places about how can the cities be made safer, cleaner, what could clean energy look like as part of our cities, how could it be better for gendered minorities, how could it be better for other minorities, what could this city as a clean and green city look like with creative solutions, which is why we're having a bunch of talks, panels, and workshops. We're having a pop up festival with different stalls there with people who believe and align with the idea of sustainability and eco friendliness and regenerative culture to be there, for there to be performances by musicians who align with the same thoughts, for there to be different other artists occupying the space and making it their own. For us to have games there and for us to have many, many more interesting activities that take place in the that take place at the venue. And of course, there will also be our installation. This is what the installation looked like in Delhi, and it has been completely revamped for Bangalore. And it's an augmented reality installation that will be launched in Bangalore with people being able to see themselves in what parts of Bangalore could look like had they been created with sustainability in mind. And that will also be one of the main highlights of our festival. These are some of the things you could hope to interact with through the AR installation. And that, in a very, very brief manner, is what our festival looks like. And we would love to have all of you there. And I would like to now open the space for your thoughts and your comments and your questions and what you hope to see. And I would also like to leave this to Chiku and Didi to take forward now.
Thank you, Mitali. Before we move on, I'd like to bring Tasha. Would you like to share what you've said in chat, if you're comfortable unmuting yourself? No problem. Tasha says that they do not like their city because people aren't nice with trans people, and being a trans girl, I have seen transphobia in different levels. Sensitizing young people would be the best way to help them understand what being trans means and all of those things. Kaushik says a future city is a smart city for them. And Neha says a comfort city is what comes to mind when they think of future city. Circular flow of economy is what Thira says in regards to waste management. And Vishal says an IT city. Mitali, do you have any hot takes on those?
Thank you for bringing that up, Didi, and thank you everybody for honestly trusting us with what you have to say. Responding to some of these, I completely hear you, Tasha, and for us, it has constantly been a conversation at Jhatkaa and with our partners too, that we want to make sure that the cities we imagine are safe for different people. And it also means that these are different things that are aligned, of course, not just in the way people respond, but even in designs of cities, right? Like I see so many people who come from vulnerable populations. There are not design-based solutions also in these cities for these people to exist freely. What would it mean for the city to explicitly have spaces for people who come from different identities to enjoy? So just to share with you, like Indu Anthony, who we're hoping becomes one of our speakers at Future City, Indu Antony has started something called as the Namakate in Bangalore, which has been a space created by like working class women and created by like gendered minorities for them to experience rest and leisure in the city. The entire idea of that one space is that people can come and just rest there. What would it mean for just more of these things to exist in the city, to drive home the point and to constantly bring forth the idea and to push out explicit messages that, you know, like these are the value systems we believe in as a city? What could it mean for there to be like community centers for trans people to exist very explicitly? Because in those ways, you as a city define a culture of how you want to make sure that people feel safe and people feel comfortable. So that's my response to Tasha. Now, just I hear the ideas of smart cities and IT cities and comfort cities, and I feel comfort is such a beautiful idea to explore there, because what does it mean to be comfortable in a city? And I would love to hear all of your thoughts on it. Also, please feel free to either unmute yourselves or put this in the chat box. What does it mean to experience comfort in a city? Because for me, my idea of comfort, for example, Vishal, do you want to go ahead and share? I'll maybe move on. But see, my idea of comfort has been making sure that there are spaces for me to rest and experience leisure as a form of comfort, which say I experience quite a lot at Cubbon Park. I know like that's a space I can go to and take a nap and feel entirely safe doing that. Which may not be the case for a lot of people who may present themselves in different ways or just come from different identities, right? And Athira, I completely agree that I hope there's more conversation about circular economy whenever we talk, not just for waste management, but for so many things, because circular economy is such an important concept, where, you know, there is no wastage. Everything that comes from the land goes back to the land. There are no profits, there are no wastages. You aren't creating or producing more than what can be consumed. And therefore, ideas of circular economy, which have been so popular in tribal cultures, I'm glad that some of them are making their way back into mainstream cultures and people are speaking about them. And yes, as Chiku said, that there are a lot of discussions we're having on the idea of circular cities, what it means to make spaces for like vulnerable populations at Future City Festival. And I think Green City and Garden City, I know there has been such a conversation around Bangalore being that, and also a huge sense of grief that that's being lost out. So, what does it mean to create a garden city again? And yes, Rashmi, I hear you that your idea of comfort is having less pollution and feeling safe on the street at any point of time. And those are also my ideas of comfort. I remember that. I remember that there was a very popular and viral tweet thread that went around asking women that if, and it was a hypothetical situation that was put forth, that if men were to disappear from the city for one night, what would you be doing? And I remember that the most popular response and resounding response to that was, I want to walk in the city. That's how much reclaiming our cities means to people, right? I know somebody raised their hand, so like Didi and Chiku, if like you can moderate who will go after. I'm just reading out what Anushka has to say, and then whoever raised the hand can go. So comfort city is the one where I feel safe, where I see people happy, and one which doesn't come in path of their growth. That's such a beautiful thought to put across. I think while we talk of experiencing less grief and less sadness, how can we move to a place where we also proactively experience joy? So it's not just about surviving, it's also about thriving. And what our different ideas of growth mean, and do our ideas of growth come in the way of somebody else's ideas of growth? As we see what happens with development now, that our ideas of development so often come at the cost of the development of minorities and comes at the cost of the development of tribals, and what development could mean as like different things for people. Chiku Didi, do you want to?
Rahul has stand up. Rahul, would you like to go?
Yes.
Yeah. So I feel that, yeah, like everyone's saying, I think we all are thinking about A, being safe, B, being comfortable. And I believe the way a city for the future would be ideal would be a space that A, is coherent with nature and the surroundings. B, we are able to be coherent as a group of people, right? So then where the people can come together and we are able to have spaces that we can talk, spaces where we can possibly express ourselves, spaces for education where people can learn from each other, and all of these in a perfect manner such that people are able to earn their living, possibly do their sports, things like that. So ways that people are able to do things in a good way would allow for interaction and allow for people to be open to new ideas and possibly work together rather
Definitely.
than, yeah.
And so once more, I'm gonna just nudge everyone. If you're comfortable, please turn on your cameras. Just brings a more human touch to everyone. And I'd like to invite Adnan, who's volunteered with us to share his experience. Adnan was an intern with us for the Future City Delhi project, and he led a team of 8 people that mobilized and talked to over 10,000 citizens who engaged with the display. We collected signatures for cycling campaigns, for waste management campaigns. Hey Adnan, over to you. Please share a little bit about your experience.
So, hello everyone, I am Adnan. I did that Future City campaign in Delhi, and it was a wonderful experience for me. I mean, meeting Delhiites and then telling them what Delhi could look like in future is really a tough job. I mean, most people don't believe that, yeah, Delhi can be pollution free or something like that. So, my experience with Future City was with just with good meeting people.
Thank you for sharing that, Adnan. Is there someone else who'd like to go now? Right. If you could turn on your cameras, it would be a lot easier. Now, what is like, what I'm going to pick people at random now. What's your idea for Future City? Delzad.
Yeah, hi. Hi.
Hey, Delzad, you're audible. So, what's your idea for Future Bangalore?
Future Bangalore. I think any city would be a great city to live in. Let's put aside the thought of a smart city, IT city. I think somebody said IT city as well in the chat. I think any city would be a lovely city to live in. If I think we ditch the idea of a smart city and have more thoughts on making the people smart. So yeah, I would love to have smart people rather than smart city.
That's
I think,
a wonderful
I think
thought.
there is no problem, because any problem if you take, whether it be the problems faced by queer community or any other problem, right? I don't think there is any problem that we cannot solve with education. So yeah, I've had this conversation with a lot of my friends for hours that there is no problem that we cannot solve, without education. If we use education as a tool to, it's like nurturing someone in a way that you know what I mean, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for sharing that, Delzad. I would like to pop. Would you like to go next, Neha? What's your idea of a future Bangalore? You're on mute if you're saying something. Okay, you're traveling, no problem. Prajwal, how are you doing? What's your idea of a future Bangalore?
My idea for future Bangalore, I can say, just yesterday I was driving through UB City and I went for a swim here in Bangalore recently. So yeah, the clogging drains and
was it a voluntary swim or was it because of?
Well, I had to jump in the water because my vehicle got stuck somewhere, so I had to get it out. So the clogging drains, all those things which are happening during the rainy seasons in Bangalore. So I think I'm so sorry if you can hear my dog barking over there. I believe that's a big issue here in Bangalore. So, and that can really help to make the city more comfortable, I can say. So, yeah.
Who would you like to nominate to go next?
Well, I have my friend Chiku over here, but okay, he's one of the main people. Okay, I would like to go with Kushi. Why don't you go next?
Kushi, would you like to go next? All right, no response there. How about Balakrishna GM? What is your idea for future Bangalore?
Hello.
Hey, yes, you're audible. Please,
Hi.
what's your idea for future Bangalore?
Future of Bangalore is the main thing is the pollution, whatever the plastic or first. If you have to be smart city, then there should be pollution should be use of plastic and whatever the other friend was telling, clogging drains and stormwater. These things has to be first clear. Then only we can become a smart for other things. Otherwise, I don't think that Bangalore will be the same. I'm born and brought up in Bangalore. From my childhood, I am here only in the Indira Nagar and HL area. What I was seeing in my childhood in the 90s and 80s, it was too much. Greenery was too much. But now it is coming down because of road widening and whatever the metro, all those things. And the city greenery is becoming less actually.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Balakrishna ji. Who would you like to nominate to go next? Shovik next, and then Nandini and Sash.
Yeah, hello, good evening, everyone. What I feel that Bangalore would become a smart city when we common people start following traffic rules. Well, every day while I go to my college, I see a lot of traffic people who are not following the traffic. To become a smart city, Bangalore, the government has taken such a great initiative that they have divided the road into various small lanes. For example, this particular lane only BMTC would be going, and particular lane only private vehicles would be going, and only particular lane only cycles would be going. So what happens in BMTC lane, private vehicle would come, in cycle lane, private vehicle will come. So we can't blame people, we can't blame the government. It's we who should take the responsibility and follow the traffic rules.
Thank you for sharing that, Shovik. Nandini, would you like to go next?
Yeah,
What's your idea for future?
I'd say maybe more warm and welcoming. And the reason I say this is because, especially as college students, there are a lot of people who come outside Bangalore, and they're spending like a good chunk of years here. And a lot of my friends, especially, they feel very uncomfortable in general, like, traveling in BMTC and stuff because of the language barrier, or there's just a huge cultural barrier. And as much as it is important to preserve your own heritage, at the same time, I think it should also be made in a way where it's accessible for everyone to enjoy. And that doesn't necessarily happen. So I'd say to be more welcoming. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Nandini. Sash, next.
Sure. So I've been in Bangalore just a year, but just to give a little bit of context why I think the way I do about what a future city is, I grew up first in like a company township, which was obviously planned for long sustained living for a huge community. And these are industrial workers. So, you have to make it as easy as possible. And then I lived in Navi Mumbai, which is Bombay's sister city, but very recently planned and so with great social infrastructure. And I think the year I've been in Bangalore, I've noticed that my view for what should be done would be a little more like quite holistic in the sense that one major issue I see in a lot in Bangalore is segregation of people. And I think even though there is some amount of public transportation, it's not convenient. And if it's not convenient, it's not accessible either for everyone. Same with just public transportation in the sense of, okay, even roads, for example. We are seeing the smart, better footpaths being made in the Tonian neighborhoods now and spreading out more and more towards outside of the city. But the breadth of the footpath I see in central Bangalore versus the breadth of the footpath I'm seeing, let's say, in Sarjapur, this difference is just too much for multiple people to walk together or a wheelchair to get on. So I think just bringing that kind of empathy into governance and urban planning and looking towards future politically progressive values being embodied into public infrastructure, and which also obviously comes, when I say infrastructure, I also include ecological infrastructure, which could just be lakes, it could be parks, it could be forest areas that Bombay has started doing now. So, and the last end would be, I think, education, like a better governance model for education and healthcare services.
Thank you for sharing that, Sash. Neha, would you like to go next? Is there someone else who would like to share before we start wrapping up? What's your idea of a future Bangalore? Vijay, would you like to go?
Yes. Very first thing, I'm not from Bangalore, so I won't be a right person to speak about Bangalore. So I won't. But in general, I would like to add one thing which is very common to our urban centers, because I work for that. Like I am making a documentary on environmental issues in urban spaces. It's been 4 years. So one of the thing is I think it has to be more. The process has to be more participatory, and the people from margin need to be involved into the boom. And the ideas for that could be the participatory budgeting. I think participatory budgeting itself has a huge potential where you bring people and you allocation and monitoring of the funds. You involve citizens into the whole process. So I believe city like Bangalore, when people are the one who are educated and they want to participate. So I think it holds a huge potential for that. And again, when we are talking about who is going to solve the issues, I think it is like people who you have to give people the power, but you have to give people the power in a more democratic sense. And I believe participatory budgeting could be a good idea. And that's all I wanted to say. And because all of the people have spoke really well. That's all. Thank you, Didi.
Thank you, Vijay. Now, I'll hand over to Mithali to wrap up our discussion today. Thank you, everyone, for everything that you've shared. Future City Bangalore is going to happen on 3rd, 4th, and 5th June. And as part of the process, we are inviting various partners, volunteer groups to come and volunteer with us to help build this vision, this festival where people are able to envision a future, and also put up stalls if they'd like to partner to put up stalls. Application links for both will be shared in chat. Over to you, Mithali. I'll just pop the links in the meantime.
Thank you so much for that, Didi. And thank you, everybody, honestly, for being so involved in the conversation. I feel everyone has been so participatory. I'll actually like to begin the ending of today's conversation with something that Rashmi has mentioned in the chat box, that we do need a place and platform where we can approach with our complaints and also recommend solutions for civic problems. And I feel that's exactly the idea with which we come when we thought of Future City, because we want to make Future City a place where, just like all of us have come together today, we come together at the festival, and there is a space that opens up for all of us to have these conversations through various channels. So, of course, while there are components like games and workshops and panels and talks and performances and art to engage in there, um, we are also engaging decision makers, politicians, people who necessarily like hold power in these realms to make changes on governmental levels, who will be involved, for corporates to be there, for civil society organizations to be there, for citizens to be there, for people who are super citizens, who are active in their respective communities to be involved, and for all of us to come together and bring different points of view of our conversations to imagine what this future city looks like. Because I believe for too long we've looked at the future as something that is so alienating in many ways, as a future that's something that's, like that's so grand that it's almost intimidating, a future where there aren't too many spaces for trees. Like, I know that when we think of futuristic ideas, as soon as I say futuristic, there are like the Star Wars like imagery in our head. But where is the conversation about how flowers grow beneath your feet? What does governance look like when there is a radical politics of love and care applied? And why can't politics be that? Why can't politics be centered around ideas of caring for our community? And so many of you here, through your conversations today, have brought up how you would like to be taken care of in a city, how you would want to feel a sense of belonging, how you would want to feel a sense of safety, and how you would want that for your friends, for your peers, for people you don't even know. And can we imagine a new city with that same value system, with ideas of love, care, belonging, and with great imagination? Because while all of us recognize problems, for us to move towards solution, we need imagination. And we hope that that's the kind of imagination we can bring to future cities. And I hope that we see all of you who are at least available in Bangalore to be at our festival, which once again, like Didi has mentioned, is happening on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th June at Bangalore Creative Circus. It'll be free of cost. You just have to register, you just have to show up, because I don't think things like these, money should be a barrier for entry. So we hope to see all of you there. The registration link for people to attend, of course, like, you'll be able to register on spot too, but the registration links would also be available on Insider and across our social media platforms. And at the same time, I hope that some of you engage as volunteers, as people who want to partner, as people who want to set up stalls there, and as people who genuinely come and show up and participate and create art and continue the conversations you've brought forth today, and engage with these decision makers who will be there, and engage with all of these different stakeholders and entities. And I hope that we all can create the city we all have imagined here today.
On that sweet note, we'd like all of you to just have a look at the chat and fill out the form if you haven't already. Be a part of the festival. Vijay has something to share. Very, very beautiful.
Vijay, do you want to say that, or do you want me to read it out? Because I feel like it should be said out loud.
That's totally okay. There was a lot of thoughts going in my head when you were speaking about the imagination. I think imagination is the where the lot of changes take place, because we are how we are mentally structured as a society is like by the imagination. If we can imagine, if we can articulate collectively what kind of city we collectively want, maybe then we'll be able to like find out the ways how we want to go about it. And there will be like, and when we put our ideas into something, we'll be taking that ownership. We'll feel that connectedness as well. Because if we are disconnected from the city at now, we won't be participating. So I think radical imagination itself holds a huge potential, particularly for the like kind of possibilities we are talking about in terms of future city. So I think that's all, and I think people can read that. And yeah, that's all. Thank you, Mitali, and reading.
Thank you so much, Vijay. And yes, I feel that while the current political climate, the current climate in itself is something that is causing a lot of anxiety in us, I feel that we cannot give in to inaction. Because while it's true that the climate is as bad as it is currently, it's also true that we didn't have the kind of possibilities of solutions that exist now 10 years ago, which is why we need all of us to come together and to keep at action, and for us to not give in to inaction, and for us to hold on to our love, and for us to hold on to our hope, because they will become, in fact, our biggest tools to move towards a future that all of us want to exist in.
Right. On that pleasant note, it's a wrap. We will see you at the pre-events and at Future City Bangalore. Please share about it with your friends, colleagues. If you're not in Bangalore, share it with people that you know who are in Bangalore. The links to volunteer, to apply for stalls are in the chat. I'll also drop my number in case you have any questions. Please feel free to reach out. Thank you, everyone.